Yeah. So I guess
Awesome.
if you don't mind, why don't you just kick it off with a quick introduction to yourself for the folks who don't know who you are?
Hey everyone, pleasure to be here. So a little bit about me. Professionally, for the last few years, I've worked in Web3 gaming, primarily as on the growth team at Star Atlas. And there we were kind of a mercenary org responsible for, in part, fundraising, revenue generation, partnerships, new product ideation, and launching different verticals. What that meant is that any way that we could help push the needle as far as community, revenue, uh, eyes on Star Atlas, on any of our core products, and keeping the community engaged up until the release of our game, which if you didn't know, Star Atlas is a AAA sci-fi MMO. So it takes around 3 to 7 years to develop. And since we were crowdfunded, we had eyeballs on us from the very beginning, meaning that we had a long, long way to go to keep a highly engaged and motivated community on our side and building with us. So that was the first part of my journey in Web3 and specifically gaming. I did that for about 2.5 years. I was the first part of the first 30 before we scaled all the way up to 200. And then I left and joined IDS, which was the studio responsible for creating Pudgy World, the digital companion to the Pudgy Penguins PFP toy collection that launched with its national Walmart rollout. So I was brought in there to head up production, to overhaul the entire game experience, from assets, design, revenue, like monetization strategy, as well as the tie-in with the digital physical products.
Okay, I guess first, or keep going.
Oh, yeah, and now I find myself consulting for a number of clients, in this games and product area at the intersection of Web3 and entertainment.
I was gonna say my gut reaction after hearing you read all that out is a simple 4-letter word: damn. Okay, man, so much to chew into. So folks, again, like if you have questions, feel free to drop them in chat. If you want to come up to the stage to talk live, feel free to do that as well. Okay, so I guess let's start with your work at Star Atlas. So you mentioned a handful of different things that you were prioritizing on how to like maximize the revenues that are coming in. Can you just kind of talk through your thought process when you like evaluated each of those and how you chose like which one to give, the most of your time to versus maybe others?
Totally. So our main revenue drivers during the time that I was there were obviously the ships. So the NFTs that were basically these tokens that could be redeemed and used throughout our various gaming experiences. That was, I would say, almost on rails even before I'd gotten in, because of the way that Star Atlas had positioned the specific utility of these items and the I would say the high fidelity, high quality nature of each of the individual ships that were being presented and marketed to the community. However, where I mostly focused on was the user acquisition portion of it. So we had a simple staking mechanism, and we were able to generate a very large amount of revenue from whales, specifically these guilds and I would say more speculative buyers in the early days. So our mandate for, I would say, continuing that revenue stream were to build up a robust community team that really understood and took a white glove approach to our core members, who felt like they and deservedly so were part of the building process, since the whole ethos of it was a decentralized, community-owned, and co-creation of this sci-fi game. So specifically, where I focused on during the first initial portion of my time at Star Atlas, where it was in that very, very bubbly, highly speculative NFT market, we're building up the community team. And making sure we had good localization, due to the fact that we had kind of clusters of whales spread throughout the world across various time zones, speaking various different languages. And then it shifted when we kind of got out of this ideation, kickstart-ish crowdfunding phase to execution mode, which was, okay, now that we've pre-sold these NFTs, we have, like, the bubble is kind of over. We're in a somewhat of a bear market. People are going to wait a long time for these ships. However, we still need to keep putting out product. How do we keep the appetite and demand high for that specific type of NFT, and at the same time give our creative team the space to ideate and work on the different game assets, the different game mechanics, all of the Web3 technology, right? Which takes time, and it takes a lot of rumination. The thing that we see a lot these days with teams that, or the teams that did start out in 2021 with that crowdfunding approach, is that they kind of released anything and everything to the community, and suffered, I would say, some whiplash. Right, there was I would say kind of creative confusion in the space. So what we did is, as the growth team, go to some of the biggest players, try and tee up a lot of announcements to show forward progress and distribution, right? Because distribution, in our case, Epic Games store, we were, I think the first or the second Web3 game to make it onto to the platform, was to show that, like, hey, this is a real-time economy. The only way that our whales and our community members are going to be satisfied with a specific NFT vertical, right, the trading part of the economy, is if they see that we're going to make a concerted effort to bring in more players, to make sure that there's a thriving player base. So, launching those partnerships, getting high visibility on the pre-alphas, and different, like, slices and iterations that we pushed out were very key in actually creating demand for those NFTs, even past the point where it was in a bubble. Now, you see that Star Atlas is picking up again in a very, very real way, and that's because they've released a referral program where these different core community members and kind of and KOLs and influencers who are organic and sprung from a lot of the early hype and the early mythos of decentralized AAA gaming. They are now able to earn a living, well, not a living, depending on where you are, but through these high volume referral fees of this on-chain referral program called StarPath. And I know I was all over the place there, but it truly did shift dramatically over the course of of 2 years, kind of where the focus was on revenue generation and how exactly we were propping that up or keeping the demand high.
Dude, that's you've explained it and walked us through it in such a succinct way. I envy you for that. I oftentimes struggle to stay on topic. Okay, so I asked this same question to Derek Lau from Guild of Guardians, who was also kind of in an instrumental role during the bull run. You know, would your strategy have changed if you were launching now? Right? Like in the bull run, it kind of felt like if you had some high quality art and a solid team behind you and you put out some work around community, like you couldn't miss. But now, like, it's a much more crowded space. There's still like a huge concern around kind of scammy pop-up projects. And we've kind of switched to like free mints versus paid mints. So I guess like if you're one of the founders in the community now and you haven't launched your NFT collection or your token yet, but you are looking to that kind of community-backed approach to fund the initial development of your project, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say that the landscape has changed as far as, you know, who's actually crowdfunding these projects, and the tools that founders and developers have at their disposal. So back in 2020, 2021, it wasn't as easy to create and distribute certain NFTs, especially on Solana. So a lot of the tech that we were building off of, was bespoke, or we're taking open source primitives from the Solana Foundation and building on top of them, or creating entirely bespoke versions of it. The buyers have also changed. So in 2021, even now, you can say that getting into Web3 is relatively high friction, depending on where you're coming from and what the product is. Mm-hmm. But it was even worse back then. So you knew that that the people who were seeing Star Atlas, and I would say we kind of broke through a lot of the ingrained audiences in 2021 that was like typically Web3 and Twitter, by having great art, by having I would say a very clear and set product vision, or game vision and roadmap. But I would still think that if your project differentiates itself on quality, whether that is game asset or depth of story, or I would say just like if that is your differentiator versus maybe it's fun, or it's sticky, or it's degenerate, right? Then by necessity you could probably still go with a paid mint. It couldn't be the only thing, right? Like I think now you have tools to develop a multi-layered approach for mints that can start with a free mint, simply to, as you said, break through that crowd, and then kind of use that as your top of the funnel, getting people in, getting people at least excited, and then working them towards the more, I would say, higher priced options or paid tier, where they're gonna get early access blank, rewards, once a certain set of deliverables or releases are put out there. I think it's entirely dependent on like how the team and how the community feels about the positioning of the game, relative to the marketing strategy or their publishing operations, right?
Mm. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Sure. So I think if you're going for a more mobile style, like MOBA game, where you kind of you need a lot of players. You're expecting a lot of churn. You might like the experience of the average player is going to be shorter, or like an idle game. You might need a free mint, right? Versus something like we haven't seen it yet, or at least I haven't seen a great example of it, but a more first person story based game, right? With some sort of adjacent multiplayer component. But what you're selling there is a fully packaged product. You're selling depth of game experience. There could be a tactic or a scenario in which it makes sense to say like you're pre-selling a certain set of NFTs or tokens or passes that have quite a high barrier to entry relative to we're gonna create a sticky 2-second game, or like 2-minute to 5-minute game loop that you and 2 other friends can play. And we just need people to get in and prime the pump for some sort of multiplayer scenario, just so that you have enough users to make matchmaking viable, right? Maybe I got a little bit off topic there. Didn't exactly give a hard answer on it, but a good example is at least what we did at Star Atlas was a hybrid version of our comic book. So slightly different from the game, but it's an adjacent product. We launched the core graphic novel as a way to add story and depth to this big universe, right? That was generally empty. You saw a lot of awesome visuals. You saw snazzy trailer, great ships, some AR art, but as far as depth, as far as world building and story, there was a lot for us to do. So what we did is launched the comic book in a 2-tiered system. We released it free across all platforms, so Amazon, Apple Books, Webtoons, etc. For each successive chapter, it was a monthly reoccurring product, and it got to number 1, I think, 4 or 5 times on Apple Books Comics. Brought a lot of people in that way. And then what we did is we did exclusive variant covers for those same comic books on different Solana-based marketplaces. So ourselves, like the StarAtlas.com, we had an exclusive variant cover, as well as Magic Eden. And those were NFTs or SFTs. And those cost about $20 a pop. We tried to lock it to that price, even if it was based on Sol. And what that did every single time, even up until late 2023, was bring in a ton of people. Every single time we released a new comic book, both on Magic Eden as well as the different Web2 publishing platforms, we received a ton of people who started to walk through that funnel of, okay, I'm in here, I'm looking at something new, the art excites me. Now I'm finding out about this, exclusive variant cover. Oh, wait, now I find out that we've gamified it, right? If I collect these 18 copies or these 18 covers, by the time the series ends, I get a bunch of rewards. I get exclusive skins within the game. There's also an embedded cipher, kind of like if you've ever read Artemis Fowl or any of those, like kind of early fantasy young adult novels, they had some sort of secret language. So we really played off of that fact that we had a bunch of factions and races within the series or within the game, and tried to get our community in on it by having the secret passcode only be given, or the secret language of ancient oosters only available to these exclusive variant covers that were the kind of the paid tier. And so that really showed us that we could go out and we could have just launched it for free, or we could have just launched it as a paid version. But this way we kind of had a nice funnel of bringing in new people. If they were excited about it, they could go deeper into the paid version, and then past that, they would come and like past the little snackable bites of 10, 15 pages of comic books. They could come in, they could explore the rest of the website. Now that they're more comfortable with it, they're not getting hit immediately with wallet connections and I would say foreign Web3 jargon. Now that they've come here, they've executed something within that website. They're more easily able to navigate around and find out, what is this whole Star Atlas thing? What's this game? Let me get it on Epic Game Store. And you've really kind of cemented in this person's mind that, Star Atlas and its ancillary products are something worth my time and, worth paying for.
That's super novel. I've seen Web3 projects like issue comic books before. And I guess like for me personally, it's never been like a huge trigger, but I can see like how you guys could use it as a bridge to Web 2 and Web 3 players outside of like your ecosystem to pull them in kind of little baby steps, get them associated with the brand, comfortable with your website, potentially jumping into your game. And that's some really creative stuff. That's that's inspiring. So I guess, also, by the way, what's up, Nades? What's up, Dante? So for a lot of the founders who are here, it sounds like the best recipe, isn't that big of a surprise. It's, do a few things really, really well at the highest possible quality that you can. Collaborate with your early community in sharing like the roadmap, the vision, a reward structure that kind of, works both ways. And, that kind of seems like the recipe to get your initial project kicked off the ground. I guess anything you would add for like specific today advice for these founders?
I would say, if maybe world building has been a secondary thought and it's all been game mechanics and awesome assets up until this point, I think, take a day or two to sit down and say, how can we add some depth to our hero characters? How can we how can we then use that to highlight or supplement our publishing efforts? So I saw it at Star Atlas. I saw it at Pudgy. Your publishing, your marketing, at the end of the day, giving people that immediate connection to your game Regardless if it's, a top-down MOBA or a first-person shooter. There's always ways to add additional story and depth and empathy to your characters, and have it in a way that resonates with your community. I think that will take you farther, more sustainably than doing a bunch of airdrops. But at the same time, to say that airdrops and a reward structure don't work is, I think, would be negligent of me. It's just, make sure that at the end of the day, you've thought it through and made sure that it's sustainable. Because we've seen many times that, even if they have a reward structure, it's in such a state that the developers have overpromised and underdelivered. But or they've overpromised, they have delivered, and the resulting rewards have kind of disincentivized anyone new from coming in, right? I think that's just about it. Make sure you're thinking of the players who are not only at the beginning, but the ones that are going to come in 6 months from now. Once you've released, and that their experience is not going to be incredibly frustrating, because that's the last thing I think anyone wants to do is, you hop into an MMORPG and, everyone you encounter has dragon armor and, is one-shotting you because they paid $20 3 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point. All right. So real quick, I want to do a check on time. So Harrison, I think I booked this for 30 minutes. If you need to drop, happy to end it now. We've covered a ton. If you're having fun and you want to jam out some more, I'm sure we can come up with a couple more questions. But either way.
I think I have time for a few questions from the audience if there's any, but I do have to drop in 10.
Okay. Yeah, totally fair. All right, folks. So this is your chance. So if you have any questions about monetizing your product, thinking through different revenue streams, different types of users, and how you can build revenue generating mechanisms for each of them, right now is the time to do it. While they're thinking of that, I guess, could you give me, and I love doing this, so like for founders who are building pieces to generate revenue in their game, 3 things that they should not do, absolutely should not do, and then maybe 3 things that they absolutely should do.
All right, give me a few seconds just to think on this.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Erasmo? I see you hopping in there. I think. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that 3 things that founders. I see a few people kind of typing in chat, so maybe I'll let them finish up. But 3 things that people shouldn't do is please. Or actually, no, this is something that you should do. You use as many of the, if you are building in Web3 and, you want to create, you want to add, a decent amount of on-chain elements into your game, please try and use as many of the, the tested tools that are out there as possible. Blockchain developers at this point are heinously expensive, right? You might get lucky and, find a few kids who are awesome, at Solidity or Rust. But if they got anything in their heads, they're going to jump ship and go for like a 200 or 300K opportunity for one of these fintech companies once they've kind of made their name for themselves. And unless you stay competitive, it's going to be really, really, really hard to create bespoke, on-chain smart contracts. I'm sure there's I know there's a ton of tools out there that really take this lift off of teams. And unless, you're really, really going for it, and, you've raised enough funding, you should probably look to either outsource that to a team, right? Like a dev studio or like a smart contract development shop, or try and use as many of the available subscription or APIs or SDKs that are out there, because it's a mess. Do get audited if you plan on doing on having an in-game economy, or are trying to tap into the more degenerate side of things. Do it at the end, not at the beginning. Or I would say like at the end, meaning you've figured out exactly what you want. You've tested it a little bit, maybe in a Web 2 manner, and you're considering taking it on chain. There's been so many rug pulls to date that an auditing firm will help with those exploits. They like to come in kind of at the beginning of when your devs are starting to to put hands on keyboard, and it's kind of a co-creation process. That honestly helped secure a lot of validity for us, but it is expensive. So keep in mind, the cost benefit on that. Do try and find a publishing partner, whether that's just a marketing agency or an actual publisher. I find a lot of the times that a key cornerstone in early revenue and user acquisition, whether that's getting people in for your pre-alpha or wish listing or pre-registration, has a ton to do with how your community is built, and a steady drip of content. And a lot of the times, hiring a marketing team in-house, unless you have people who are extremely, extremely scrappy and down to produce an ungodly amount of content and iterations, it's going to feel really slow. It's going to drag on. So I would say like find a team who's worked together, like an agency that specializes in this stuff, that's worked together for a while, that you can mind meld with, and they can bring you back some awesome stuff, or work with contractors up until a point that you can start to bring people on board. Otherwise, it's a lot of overhead for results that for a lot of people aren't worth it.
So in the meantime, you've gotten a couple questions here.
Yeah, is there a site that offers secure smart contractors? Secure smart contracts. I'd say that there are tools like, I think, I can't remember specific SaaS tools or payment rails for like different chains. But I know like even Xsolla, they have like portions of their product that offer on-chain payments. I would say that you should probably get a dev studio or hire a contractor to create those smart contracts or tweak them based off of like maybe an initial open source GitHub, just to save yourself a lot of the vetting and just time to implementation. I hope that answers your question, Golden. Is Perfect. That like I would go through a trusted network or use an existing SaaS tool like Xsolla or payments rail. If you're thinking of like on-chain payments, but if it's something like NFT trading or something along those lines, I think some of these wallet providers have a lot of all-in-one platforms. So they'll have like a marketplace and a wallet, as well as the smart contracts that will enable you to distribute NFTs and allow certain features that might be highly applicable to your game.
Perfect. Now, all right, folks. So we have ran 10 minutes over. Harrison, we have a couple more questions. What I'm thinking is I can pull these down and shoot them to you in a DM, or if you want to just pop back into the Discord whenever you have a second and just maybe share a couple thoughts. Alternatively, I feel like we could ask you a ton more, so maybe we could schedule another 30-minute block of yours in the new year at some point. Your call.
Totally. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, here I'm dropping my Twitter in the comments. I am available right now for like I help consult with Web3 game studios and builders in the space on core product revenue and go to market. So if this is really sounding like something that is helpful to you, or I could offer some insight to you guys, like please feel free to reach out and we can start that conversation. Ryan, I would be more than happy to schedule a few more follow-ups with you guys and the community. This has been really, really fun, and I hope that I can do this a lot more.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'm glad you had a good time. All right, folks. So everybody say thank you to Harrison. Say thank you to yourselves for showing up and supporting the community. Our next event, if you want to mark your calendars. So tomorrow we have another call about generating revenue in games with James Boyle. I've actually worked with James in the past. He was ex-product at Jam City and TinyCo, two Web2 mobile game powerhouses. He helped oversee the Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery game and product, which generated about $500 million in Web2 revenue. And he's worked a little bit in Web3 as well. So should be a cool conversation to just kind of pick his brains about Web2 best practices and maybe things that we can adopt for our games. But I'll drop that in here, and that's it. Appreciate everybody. Thanks.